I had the pleasure of meeting Her Majesty in 2015 at Hillsborough Castle. I believe it was one of her last visits to Northern Ireland, and it was the Lord Lieutenant for County Down who nominated me. And there was, each county had 3 people for Her Majesty to meet, and I was one of the 3 from County Down. So we all went to Hillsborough Castle, and then we stood, and Her Majesty was brought around by Mr. Lindsay, who was Lord Lieutenant at the time, to meet each group, and that's how I came to be presented to Her Majesty. I remember standing, and as you see Her Majesty approaching you, your heart starts to beat quicker, and you suddenly realise, oh my goodness, this is actually the Queen coming to speak to me. And I remember before we had been given all the etiquette rules of, you know, you call her Your Majesty first, and then you call her ma'am afterwards. You don't speak till she speaks. You know, she will hold out her hand if she wishes to shake her hand or not. And then when she drops her head down, you know, she knows that's her moving on. And I remember saying to my wife, who was with me at the time, oh my goodness me, I've forgotten everything I've been told to do. Claire's just coming, what am I going to do? And Claire was saying, just keep calm, you'll be all right. You got very, very nervous because you realised this was the Queen, you know, coming to actually stand with you. And she was looking really well. Yes, she actually was very well informed, because she said to me, well, Mr. Lindsay said, this is Mr. Colin Millar, he's the principal of a special school, and she said, oh yes, this is the gentleman who was very ill. And she asked me, now, it was swine flu, wasn't it, Mr. Millar? And I said, yes, Your Majesty. And she says, oh, that must have been horrible. I said, it wasn't very pleasant. And then she asked me, oh, what hospital were you in? And I said, I was flown into London and taken to the Royal Brompton immediately because my lungs had stopped functioning. And she says, oh, I know the Royal Brompton well. And of course I said, yes, it's round the corner from where you live, you know. And she actually smiled, you know, which I thought was quite funny. My wife was horrified afterwards, but I was so nervous speaking to it. It just came out, it was just me naturally. Then she explained, how did you get it? It wasn't in China. And I explained how it was one of the children had sneezed on me in the last day, and that's how the virus got into my system. I collapsed in the plane, and that was me. Then I was in a coma for 6 weeks. She then went on to ask how was I back at work, and I said yes. And she said, which I thought was lovely, I'm sure the children were pleased to see you back. And I said, well, I hope all of them, but I'm sure some of them weren't. And she laughed again. And then what I thought was beautiful, Hannah, she turned to Claire and she said, and it wasn't easy for you, Mrs. Millar, because people forget the carer often in these situations. And I thought that was lovely. My main memory of the day was, first of all, I noticed how tiny Her Majesty was, and particularly when I had bowed my head, for some reason I got fixated on her tiny feet. She had very, very petite feet, but just the total awe you had for this lady, and the fact that she was so pleasant and so well informed, and actually asked you questions that weren't generic questions. There were questions that meant a lot to you as a person. And I thought it was just lovely the way she turned to my late wife and involved her in the conversation. And it was just one of those days you'll never forget, because you left with a glow, you know, saying that I have actually spoken to our monarch, I've spoken to the Queen, and she knew about me, she was interested in what I was saying, and she took her time, she didn't rush, you know, she gave you your moment, and it was just a beautiful day. And I just feel so privileged to have said I've met Her Majesty, and that we had a little chat, and she seemed to enjoy the chat. And I was just pleased that afterwards, that when we were all talking, that the Lord Lieutenant said that she was very impressed with all the people she had met and the things that they had done in their life. So that was lovely to hear as well.